You know that feeling when you are talking to someone and you realize you are not really talking to them anymore. You are talking to a script. They open their mouth and a podcast falls out, or a comment section falls out, or an entire belief system falls out, fully formed, with catchphrases and neat opinions and no real person in sight. Sometimes you see it in yourself. You watch yourself get triggered by the same topic. You feel the same rush of heat in the body. You hear yourself say the same sentences you have said 100 times before. You can almost predict the argument before it happens, and you still walk straight into it. That is the kind of thing this video is about. And it is the same problem I have been trying to pull apart in my first book, Mental Magic for the Modern Magician, Remaining Sovereign in a World That Wants Your Soul. But let's stay with the problem for a moment. At some point I realized that is not just how people are. That is ritual. That is magic. It is just being done to you instead of by you. Once you see it that way, you cannot unsee it. You start noticing how often you are possessed by a pattern, a narrative, an archetype that does not really care about your individual life at all. You can watch someone swap masks in real time. They go from anxious child to outraged citizen to enlightened guru to exhausted addict, all in one conversation. And underneath it, there is something quieter that does not really get a say. Let's be blunt. You are already doing magic. You just do not call it that. You have rituals. Reach for your phone first thing on waking. Scroll until your nervous system is numb enough to get out of bed. Argue with the same people about the same topics. Run the same self-sabotage pattern right when something in your life might actually improve. Those are spells. They alter your state. They reinforce a story about who you are and how the world works. They bind you to a certain set of behaviors. You do them with a kind of grim loyalty. Rituals of distraction. Rituals of avoidance. Rituals of self-hatred. Once you start seeing that, the line between psychology and magic gets very thin. On one side, you have models of trauma, habit loops, prediction, nervous systems. On the other, you have sigils, spirits, archetypes, altars. Underneath, it is the same machine. Magic, psychology, neuroscience. 3 languages for the same nervous system, the same pattern-hungry brain. The question is not, do you believe in magic? The question is, do you want to keep letting unconscious rituals and invisible stories run your life? Or do you want to start writing some of the code yourself? So let's talk about what I mean by mental magic in terms of problems you actually live with. Problem 1. You do not see the script. You think you are having original thoughts. Most of the time you are running a reality tunnel someone handed you. Family, culture, politics, spiritual scenes. even your idea of what a good person is. You put on a tunnel like a helmet. Inside that helmet, certain ideas feel obvious and others feel insane. The hard part is that your tunnel feels like reality, not my current model. Reality. So when someone threatens it, it feels like an attack on you. Mental magic starts by catching that, by seeing the helmet, by learning how to take it off for a moment, look at it, and put it back on deliberately if it is still useful. Not to become detached and superior, just to have the option of saying, "This is a script I am running, not a law of physics." Problem 2. You play with belief and ritual, but it ends up owning you. Maybe you have tried chaos magic. Maybe you have done manifestation exercises. Maybe you have gone deep into occult books or spiritual healing or therapy. There is a pattern where people start using belief as a tool and then quietly slide into being used by it. They stumble on one system that gives them a big experience. It feels like salvation. From that moment on, everything has to validate that system. Anything that does not fit gets twisted until it does, or ignored. I am more interested in reversible, magical thinking. Belief as something you can pick up for a specific purpose. Run an experiment. See what it does to your perception, your behavior, your life. Then you put it down again. You do not have to build your whole identity on whether a sigil worked. You do not have to turn one breakthrough therapy session into a religion. You keep a little distance. Enough to keep your hands on the steering wheel. Problem 3. You have no clean way to change yourself. The usual options are: try harder, rely on willpower, or chase huge mystical experiences and hope they fix everything overnight. Willpower burns out. Mystical experiences fade. So I talk about what I call the rewiring loop. Your nervous system learns by repetition in state. If you are always anxious when you try something new, your body learns new equals danger. If you are always slightly proud and grounded when you hold a boundary, your body learns, this is how we do things now. Mental magic is about designing small state shifts and repeating them until they become traits. Changing breath, posture, inner dialogue and behavior together in specific situations. Treating those little rituals as training data instead of, I will be confident from now on. You get, in this kind of moment, I run this ritual, and my body slowly updates its expectations. Problem 4. The environment is hostile. You live inside a swarm of tiny egregores, apps, brands, games, movements, each with their own survival instinct. They reward certain moods in you. They punish others. They pull your attention down to the lowest, loudest layers of your mind. You do not have to believe in spirits to see this. Open one platform, and you are nudged toward outrage. Open another, and you are nudged toward envy. Open another, and it buries you in fear. Mental magic, for me, includes learning to treat these forces as entities you relate to. Which ones you feed, which ones you ignore, which ones you use for a specific purpose, and then close. Sovereignty is not about becoming untouchable. It is about knowing who and what you are making pacts with every day. Let me make this less abstract and give you a few of the concrete tools I talk about. One is the idea of servitors as psychic software. Think, I am writing a small program for my own mind. You define a function. For example, when I sit down to work, I want a part of me that is focused, calm, slightly ruthless about distractions, and not interested in checking my phone every 3 minutes. You give that pattern a name. You give it a symbol. You decide when it is allowed to run and when it is not. You build it through repeated states and cues. And just as importantly, you shut it down when you are finished. The skill is not just summoning a pattern, but dissolving it. Another tool is the two-story house model of consciousness. Imagine your mind as a house. Downstairs is alarm. All the quick, emotional, survival-driven circuitry. Fear, craving, impulsive pleasure, old trauma reactions. Upstairs is the librarian. Reflective, verbal, capable of seeing patterns over time. This is the part of you that usually knows better, but arrives late to the scene. Most of your worst decisions happen when alarm has locked the door at the bottom of the stairs. You are in a loop. You cannot access the part of you that would normally say, "We have been here before. Maybe do not send that message." Mental magic includes tiny rituals that reopen that staircase. Specific ways of breathing, moving, speaking to yourself that tell the body it is safe enough to let the librarian have input. The point is not to suppress alarm. The point is to get both floors online at the same time. And then there is the possessed or invoked question. We all run archetypal patterns. Lover, warrior, hermit, trickster, sovereign. Sometimes those patterns give you backbone, courage, depth. Sometimes they take over and wreck your life. The diagnostic is simple. Did you put the mask on, or did it fall on you, and now you cannot get it off? If you deliberately invoke an archetype for a specific situation with a clear start and end, that is mental magic. You say, "For this conversation, I am going to lean into the king archetype. Slow speech, calm posture, long view. Then I am going back to being a normal idiot again." If you are always the martyr, always the hero, always the victim, regardless of context, that is closer to possession. Part of sovereignty is learning exit rituals. Ways to say, "Thank you. That was useful. Now go back to your room." All of this is what I mean by mental magic. Not stage tricks, not fantasy roleplay. The day-to-day work of noticing what is moving through you, what patterns are running, and choosing, as often as possible, to be the one doing the summoning, instead of the one being worn. If you want to go deeper into this, I have put the full system into a book called Mental Magic for the Modern Magician, Remaining Sovereign in a World That Wants Your Soul. It is essentially this kind of work laid out in one place, instead of scattered across separate videos. If that pulls at you, there is a link in the description where you can find it. If not, you have at least got some new handles to experiment with. Either way, start paying attention to which thoughts feel like yours and which feel like someone else wearing your face. That is where taking it back begins. Until next time.